Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Human Pulse podcast, where we talk about living well with technology. I'm Fabrice Neuman.
And I am Anne Trager.
We are recording this on November 30th, 2024.
Human Pulse is never longer than 30 minutes, so let's get started. So, Fabrice, there's something new on the tech front, isn't there?
Well, many things. And you know what? We're going to talk about AI again.
Again?
Well, that's all the rage, as everybody knows. Well, I just wanted to talk a bit about Mistral. This is the French tech company, and also the same name for the tool, Mistral AI, that they offer to the world, actually, because it's in their mission statement to offer for free the AI model that you can access through their website, mistral.ai. And there's a new version of their chat. It's called, and so they do a pun in French. They call it le chat, because chat, C-H-A-T, means cat in French. So you can use le chat on Mistral.ai to have a conversation with an AI bot, as per usual. The new things are the fact that you can now activate the web search, just like Search GPT or Perplexity AI. And then you can use their model to go through the results and have a comprehensive, quote unquote, answer from the web. And you can also generate images, which is nice to have, I think, as a free tool as well to create images. And there's also this Canvas thing, which is very close to what OpenAI and ChatGPT offers, which is you ask it, for example, to create a document, like a letter for something or a mission statement or whatever. And you have then on the side of the screen the document that it has created. And you can modify the document and then use the AI to modify a certain part of the document, or actually go into the document to work on it.
Sounds like fun. Sounds like something that's another tool to play with. And
among the gazillion tools that we have.
and as if by destiny or something, one of our cats has joined us for the podcast today. So, we go. A little thumbs up to Mr. Le Chat.
Exactly. So, but other than that, so last episode we talked about AI, and I wanted to go back to it, and we wanted to go back to it because at the time you mentioned the amazing ways that AI was making progress at being more efficient, for example. And it seems that since then you reached some glass ceiling, or maybe worse. So maybe you want to talk to us about it?
So that might be a little bit
oversold,
right? Exactly. But there is a trust issue that's happening for me, and it's happening rather quickly. So I'm a little bit astonished. So in episode 4, we talked about how we have trust in tech. And right now I'm experiencing the fact that it's not working exactly the way it was working before, and it's not working to my expectations. And so I'm losing trust, which is exactly what happens with all the tech that we use, usually. So I've had a few experiences with Gen AI recently that where it came up with, there's no other way of saying it, complete bull. Okay. So it's more than hallucination. I've experienced hallucinations before. What happened is I was using the same prompt structure and so forth that I had used successfully previously. And it came up with something with things, and several times, obviously I tested it several times, that were completely off the mark. So I had translations where it cut out things, like important stuff. So completely changing the meaning. And so I would have this back and forth saying, what have you done? You're missing. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. It would reply, and then would come back with some more mistakes. Let's put it that way. It's pulled up, research that's totally non-existent, even though I specify that, in my prompts that I want verifiable with links and so on and so forth. It will come up with links that don't exist or that don't go to where it says it's going. So I don't know, really, really off the mark, and misinterpretations of topics as well. So my initial response was very human. Where did I go wrong? What am I doing wrong in my prompting or in this and that and the other thing? And then, of course, being a coach, I pulled myself back. I did a little self-coaching, saying, well, maybe it's not you. Let's look at this from a bunch of different angles. And I then, in my self-aware factor, said, there is a drop in trust factor here. Right now, my response is to be paying a lot more attention to the output and double checking and bringing in a lot more skepticism in the way that I'm using it. And while I simultaneously try to improve my interaction with it to see if I can get better responses.
Yeah. Well, so the worrying thing is that we are used to having or to getting some hallucinations, as you mentioned. But more when we, for example, as we talked about a few minutes ago in Mistral, you can search the web and then use AI to go through the results. But then doing that and converse with those chatbots, we learn very quickly about hallucinations where the chatbots, they don't know when they don't know, right? So, and they're programmed to give an answer. Whether it's the right or wrong answer, they have no idea, obviously. And so, but you always get an answer. And this is where you get some wrong things.
Well, I think that we're learning about how to use these tools and what are the limits of the tools and how we can make them work for us. And it behooves us right now from this conversation to really pay careful attention and double check how much we trust what we're doing and make sure that we can trust it and perhaps keep that level of attention high for a certain amount of time for now. So as we can see from real use of AI, that now is a time to perhaps pay a little bit more attention to what it's actually bringing back to us and how to use this as a tool. We're exploring the confines of this tool, like what are the edges and limits of it. And I expect that it's going to continue to change for quite some time now. I had another conversation recently about real use of AI and not just the bandwagon hype of AI. Okay. I was talking with a head of human resources in a very large international company. And what they use is Copilot. So I asked her, I said, well, how are you using it? And basically she told me that she uses it to summarize and review emails. So she can come in the morning and get a summary of all of the numerous emails that came in recently. She'll use it also to write notes. And the idea, the hope is that it saves time. Okay. So it saves time on these activities. And from the conversation, what I realized and what she described is that her time gained is not really time gained because, as she says, she only ever has time for 20% of whatever comes in over her desk. That's just the nature of her job. Okay. So she has to make that choice as to what the 20% is. And with the AI, she now has insights into the other 80%. And that said, she will never, ever have time to manage that 80%. So it's not really helpful. It's not bringing additional value add. It might potentially be adding more mental weight, some sort of, there's all of this. But anyway, she didn't say that. I'm thinking that out loud. What she did say is that she's very aware that 80%, those summaries that she's getting from AI, she still will not have time to treat. So what's the point is the question I ask. Clearly, AI for the time being in this company is not solving the organizational over-communication issues that are there in a lot of large organizations. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we've been talking about this, for example, just email overflow in companies where we all have those examples of people sending emails and copying the email to everyone just to make sure that that not everyone is informed, but to make sure that people sending email can say, well, I told everybody, so it's not my fault if something happens.
Yeah.
right?
Well, and that's just one of many internal communication problems that are happening on organizational levels these
Yeah,
days.
exactly. And the thing is, so email summary by AI doesn't help for that because it's just saying, okay, you have received many emails. Plus, as we mentioned, sometimes the summaries are not that good, so you might miss a few key points, which is annoying. And then there's also this thing of nowadays, more emails are actually written by AI, right? And so get longer because you find it interesting and more polite, basically, to say, okay, instead of sending just a few key points, I'm going to write quote unquote to have written a whole paragraph by AI, so it lands more properly or something.
Well, somebody asked me on one of the social media things, well, what do you do? How do you keep up this human notion with AI taking over so much? And actually, I think people can tell when something is written by AI without any further human intervention afterwards. I know I can.
Yeah.
I've received some emails like that, and I'm like, really? Seriously? You didn't even take the time to, make it sound human? So there's, like I said, I think we're testing the limits. We're trying to figure out how to use these tools. I have a lot of compassion for people right now. And at the same time, we've got to figure this out and at some point. What I thought was really interesting, if we go back to this HR person's experience, is what she said was, for her, it's problematic because it's getting in the way of these are her words, of the necessary letting go. There will always be more to do, and you need to choose what you're going to do. You need to focus in on that 20%, and AI is not going to do that for you. But you think it is. And then so you just get more and more and more, and you're not doing the letting go of that 80% that is not adding value. So I thought that was really interesting. It makes us think again, if we get back to how can we live well with this, is, well, maybe we have to delegate it to the right tasks and again, be more human. That is, be in a place of choice as to what's important and where am I adding value and what tasks am I doing are truly adding value. So the other thing that she said was that her company is still waiting to see any return on investment in the AI, which is another important thing. It might be a little soon, and maybe the return on investment will not come. I don't know.
So it's been 2 years since ChatGPT 3.5 was revealed to the public. And so many things happened during those 2 years, and it really changed the whole horizon, if you will. And then after 2 years, we get to those questions. Is there any return on investment? Are there really good results linked to AI? Which leads to the big question, are we in an AI bubble? It seems that after 2 years, there's some kind of backlash, right? We are using all those tools, the gazillion tools we were mentioning a few minutes ago. There are so many that we don't know what to choose from, and we don't have time to try them all. And then, but then for what? Are we really getting something out of those tools? We want to use AI. The promise of AI that we see is that we are going to spend less time on things or gain time because we can do more. Do we need that? And so we really need to think about using those tools. And I think let's reemphasize the fact that those AI tools are just that, tools, and we need to learn how to use them.
Yeah, and tools used by humans. Yeah.
Yes.
So how can we use these tools to add as much value as we can as humans? And I said add value. I didn't say do more. Okay. I'm all about optimization, which is usually not about doing more. Okay. It's about doing the right stuff at the right time. Well, bubble or not, we are using AI. A lot of people are using Gen AI with this incredible access to it. And actually, it may not be saving us time or helping us do more things. It may, however, be saving us energy, like physical energy. Why is this? Okay. Even if it's not solving any of the other promised problems yet. Okay. So I was listening to a podcast recently with a conversation between Andrew Huberman and Dr. Terry Sajanowski. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. And he is a computational neuroscientist. Okay, my kind of guy, like that kind of stuff. So what he discusses is an anecdote from a New York Times article about a technical writer who found that interacting with ChatGPT in a polite, human-like manner reduced her fatigue at the end of the day, which I find to be really interesting. Anything that reduces fatigue means that there's more energy for all kinds of other stuff. Cool, right? So the neuroscientist goes on to explain that this phenomenon could be because our brains are wired for human interaction, and treating AI like a human taps into some kind of pre-existing neural circuits, which make the interaction less mentally taxing. So I thought about you, Fabrice, because in our last episode, you talked about how you didn't want to talk to your AI. You preferred to type in and do your usual thing. Well, so maybe you are expending energy in a way that you don't need to expend energy.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I thought about it, and I also link that to the fact that even before AI and the chatbot, I've been using or trying or testing at least dictation tools, right? And I always go back to typing on the keyboard because for many reasons. First of all, I'm fast enough. I'm not such a good typist, but I'm fast enough to write more or less as quickly as I think. But I always found that using dictation tools was difficult because in order to write a sentence, I would have to form the sentence in my head before saying it aloud, right? And when you're on a keyboard, I can type and then go back and then delete and then go back and then type and, and it's a messier process, if you will. And so dictating doesn't work for me. And I think it's linked to the fact that I don't like to talk to the AI as well, because it's the same thing. I need to formulate the question. So what probably is going to help is the fact that now with the new Gemini bots and ChatGPT, and the soon quote unquote to come new Siri, you can talk to them in a more natural way where you would say, can you say, no, tell me, oh, maybe I can do, and then you can stumble on your words. Well, and so maybe that might help. And then go back to what you were saying, which is more natural. So maybe spending less energy doing that.
Right. And I don't think they're talking about this dictation thing, because I understand when you're dictating a sentence, and you're dictating a written sentence, not a spoken sentence, and so forth. So there are different processes in there. Right now, what we're talking about here is actually how you interact with the chatbot. And that's the nature of these natural language models. And there's a big difference between using natural language and, doing what we used to do, which was to translate it into, button clicks or specific actions. You're giving instructions to your computer, and we don't actually need to do that anymore. And that's kind of cool. I was listening to another podcast called Work Labs with Jamie Teven, who is Microsoft's chief scientist and technical fellow. And evidently it was an apology for AI. So we get to bring in some really positive stuff with this. This is today's positive spin on AI. And it was really interesting. And she was talking about this notion of a natural language model and how it allows us to express our intent directly. That's what you're saying. So you didn't actually have to reformulate it into a proper sentence. You can just express the intent directly. And she also talks about how using these models, we can express our intent in a much richer and more contextual way. So what we can do now with these models is to give more context, which comes from prompts, and it comes from previous conversations that we can share and any relevant documents and any examples and so on and so forth that we can all put in to get better responses and to have an interaction which is richer than even an interaction with a human being would be. So there's a lot that we can do with these natural language models.
It's been the promise for computers, in science fiction to start with, where we would talk to computers, they would understand. I would add to that something I found pretty funny. There's in my other podcast, Les Voix de la Tech, we interviewed a French journalist and entrepreneur called Benoît Raphael. He's an AI specialist, and he said something about AI and about it's better to be polite using an AI. And not just because maybe at some point they will be our overlords. And so the AI will remember those who were polite and those who were not. But also because as a tool nowadays, it can give better answers, more accurate answers. Because basically, if I simplify it a bit, AI models have been trained on polite data. More than non-polite, because contrary to what might seem on some social media platforms, humans are mostly polite. And so the overall politeness of data is better used by being polite to the AI churning through that data.
Jamie Teven says the same thing in her in the podcast I mentioned earlier when she was talking about how best to prompt Gen AI and use it to get the best results. She talks about being polite, since AI tends to mirror your tone, and it's based on polite, as you say, polite conversation. So if we come up with a list of ways that we can use Gen AI and get better results, well, one would be to be polite. Another would be to actually ask AI to help you make better prompts. And I'm definitely going to do this and see if it helps me with my current situation with AI. We can give examples and context to provide that rich contextual information that AI is good at using. We can also use, and we haven't really talked about this, but really use AI to get feedback on our own work. I think that's something I've had a lot of success on. Hey, what do you think of this? And how can I improve this? And, what am I missing? And, what 3 questions come up for you when you read this? And that kind of feedback is really interesting. So, yeah, those are a few things. You have anything to add to that, Fabrice?
So I'm not sure. Maybe also, I don't know about you, but I think I'm now at the point where I need to choose fewer tools to really use. Because I tried so many things, and we are part of this Gen AI group, for example, and we talk about new tools every week. And there's a point we reached nowadays saying we talk about new tools all the time, but which ones are we really using on a daily basis? And this is where, after those 2 years, I think this ChatGPT anniversary is really important for that. We need to take a step back and say, okay, what are we going to use? What am I going to use now? And maybe forget a bit about new tools for a while.
I agree with you. And I also think there are other issues that we really should, as responsible citizens of this planet, be thinking about when we're using AI.
Yeah. And this is the energy consumption. So let's be clear about it. We don't exactly know yet what the energy consumption is for each AI tool we use, right? We tend to say that, and the estimate is pretty wide. Using a tool like Search GPT is 10 to 100 times more energy consuming than a regular Google request. But they were able to do that, and using some renewable energy like solar panels, stuff like that. But it seems that they're not able to do that anymore because they are talking about opening up some nuclear plants because they need more energy / we need more energy. This is where it's very important to see the progress that are made on models that can run locally on our devices. This is basically the promise of Apple Intelligence, and which is not at the level we would like as far as results are concerned. But if we can use those models locally, then of course it uses energy, but far less than if we send everything to the web and then have results coming back. That's very important.
It's not only energy, it's also water consumption to cool down the servers and things like that. And so I found a stat that talked about a ChatGPT. When you ask ChatGPT a question, it uses the same amount of energy as a 4-watt LED bulb uses in an hour. Okay, so that's just one question to an hour. So that's just energy-wise. And then the conversation will consume 500 milliliters of water. Okay. So, I mean, just if you start calculating, it is really quite outrageous. And, at some point there may come, kind of reckoning. But for me, what I'd like to think about right now is, again, to go back to what we were saying earlier, is we need to figure out how we can use these tools so that they really add value and not just sort of in this sort of blurry kind of way we're using them now, which of course is part of the process. I also think that the notion of all of the energy that these tools use is a reminder of just how efficient our brains are, because we don't need that much energy or that much water to do the same kind of thinking, or sometimes even better, more critical thinking. So, interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's really emphasize that. And it circles back to what we were saying at the beginning, which is, instead of launching a tool to do something, maybe you can take a few seconds to think about it, and maybe you don't need that tool. And so, because our brain is so efficient. So
exactly.
Let's use it, please.
Let's use it. Well, and potentially use it or lose it.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I'm just going to, okay, I don't want to end on a negative note. I would rather end on a positive note.
Yes.
Okay. And so I want to bring in some really, really cool things that are becoming possible with AI that I learned about in the November 2024 issue of National Geographic magazine. So there are 3 things that are happening that AI is making possible. First of all, scientists are using AI to read papyrus scrolls that are too fragile to open up. So we're getting this whole new view of history from that. And that is really cool and very human, because it's like human history. Okay. Second thing is scientists are using AI tools to try to figure out what various animals are saying to each other. Very cool. Notably whales. Okay. And understanding this will help us to understand their habitats, to strengthen the bonds maybe that we have with other living creatures. Again, very cool as citizens of this very diverse planet. And then the third one is that seismologists are using it to better understand earthquakes and to better predict natural disasters. Again, how cool is that? And that's it for episode 6. Thank you for listening. You can find all the links mentioned in this episode in the show notes directly in your podcast app. And don't forget to go to our website, humanpulsepodcast.com, to find more information and all of our previous episodes. humanpulsepodcast.com.
Thank you for subscribing, sharing, and please leave a review to help our wonderful podcast to be found. And we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Bye.